Hi guys!
So we've decided to start this new series known as Student Must Reads, where we'll essentially read books and review them that we feel have impacted us a lot and we feel like students would benefit from them.
So the point of this series is that we're going to be looking at these books from a student perspective. So we're going to be looking at topics that we thought were very interesting, what we liked about the book as students, and what we didn't like about the book.
And for the first book and for the first review, we'll be discussing the 4-Hour Workweek. We feel like that book has influenced both of us immensely. We keep talking about it in all our videos, and we decided that would be a great book to start the show with, right? So let's get to it.
So the first key topic that we thought was important was automating your income. Tim Ferriss says that automating your income is very important to having a fulfilling life. So instead of spending your time on a normal 9-to-5 day, you can instead focus the time on the things that you truly enjoy and have an automated passive income running in the background so you don't have to worry about money. Part of the thing to look at when you're looking at automating your income is seeing your relative income to other people. This means instead of looking at somebody earning, say, $40,000 a year, you're looking at how much they're earning per hour. Because if you're earning $20,000 a year, but then you're working a quarter of the time that everyone else is working, per hour you're actually earning more money than they are. And that's the key here, is saving time and automating your income.
And he also talks about relative income and absolute income in terms of geographical location. So $40,000 in Thailand will probably be worth a lot more than $40,000 in the US. And that redefinition of income is very important in the 21st century.
Like Tim Ferriss says, everything's possible and reality is negotiable.
The second topic that the book talks about is changing your mindset. Tim Ferriss extensively talks about not underestimating yourself. A lot of people in today's world underestimate themselves, feeling that they're not good enough and that everyone who's a millionaire is doing much better than them, is much smarter than them. But the reality is that everyone is just as mediocre as everyone else and people are not as smart as you think. It's actually a lot less crowded at the top, so you're more likely to achieve higher goals that seem very ambitious than goals that seem mediocre where there's a lot more competition. For example, a marketing company might think that they should land a medium client when in reality, it's much easier to land a larger client because not a lot of people think that they can get that client. That's why it's a lot less competition.
So our final topic that we think is important is on productivity. An important concept that Tim Ferriss talks about in productivity is Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law states that work expands to fill the time that is given to it. This means if you have a task that you need to complete and you give it a day, then it will take you the whole day to complete this task. Whereas if you say to yourself that you only need 2 hours to complete this task, the task itself will take 2 hours because you work according to how much time you have and what deadline you have.
And you might think that you don't have enough time in the day, but if you just schedule a lot of things, you somehow find that you complete most of those things. Whereas if you only schedule 3 things, you're more likely to only do 3 things.
So an example of this for students would be an assignment. So if your assignment is set for 2 weeks, you're going to take 2 weeks to complete the assignment. However, if you give yourself your own deadline of 1 day, you would actually be surprised to know that you complete it within that time frame.
Similarly, if you feel like you can only do 4 courses, but you end up registering for a 5th course, by the end of the course you realize that you had enough time to complete that course and any other thing that you had to do. The next law that Tim Ferriss talks about is Pareto's law, also known as the 80-20 rule. The idea behind that law is that 80% of the output is generated by 20% of the input. So 80% of your calories, for example, come from 20% of your diet. Similarly, for students, 80% of all your grades come from 20% of the input, and if you want to get that extra 20%, that means 100%, then you need to put a lot more effort in. So it's more tactical for you to focus on the 80% by putting a lot less work in. The next thing that Tim Ferriss talks about is the low information diet. The low information diet essentially says that in a world with a lot of information, there's only very little information you actually need. And by reducing the input of that information, you can actually become a lot more productive. For example, if you spend all the time on social media and reading the news or going to every single lecture in every day would actually be detrimental to you because there's only so much information a human can take. And if you only focus on the pieces of information that you actually need to achieve your goals and ambitions, you're more likely to understand that information and get a lot more work done.
One thing that Tim Ferriss talks about extensively is not wasting time. He says, spending lots of time on something that's unimportant does not make it important. This cannot be understated enough because lots of people are busy instead of being productive, and there's a difference. For instance, students spend lots of time on something that accounts for a very small percent of their grade instead of focusing all their time on the big tests and assignments.
And people often feel like they're being productive when they're doing grocery chores or, for example, when they're reading an assignment, when in reality, you're not being productive, you're just being busy. There's a difference. You'd rather be focusing on writing a new assignment or studying for a test, and that would actually be a lot more productive.
So ask yourself when you're doing something, is this actually important and is this actually contributing to what I need to do? Or am I actually not being productive and doing something just to fill the time?
The last thing that Tim Ferriss often talks about in his book is mini retirements. The idea of retiring at age 60 after working 60 years of your life is quite archaic and old. In the 21st century, the idea of mini retirements is more useful. Mini retirements is essentially working for a period of time and then taking a break or traveling during another period of time and alternating between those periods. So you're a lot more productive during the work periods because you have something to look forward to. For example, you could enjoy your time in college while also working rather than working throughout college only to enjoy when you're 60 and you're not able to enjoy yourself. Here are a few things that we liked about the book. Firstly, we love how he provides examples from his own life and from lives of real people who've implemented all of the things he talks about in the book to show that these things are not just theories, they have actually been tested and are successful.
The second thing that we like is that Tim Ferriss talks about a goal that seems unattainable, but he makes it into something that is very realistic and can be achieved easily.
We also love how he provides concrete steps to solve each and every problem and doesn't give vague ideas and vague generalizations. Instead, he gives us a step-by-step to-do list on what to do and what not to do.
One of the ways he does this is he gives you lots of resources, so websites for instance, that can provide you with the tools you need to complete this kind of lifestyle.
So you're not wasting your time and you don't have any excuse. All you have to do is follow the steps exactly, go to the resources and start exactly what you want to do.
Now we're going to talk about some things that we don't particularly like about the book. So one of them is that he suggests using virtual assistants. Virtual assistant is someone online anywhere in the world who you pay to do a service. One reason why we think this is questionable and might not be for you is that whereas in your own country there's a set minimum wage, if you're hiring someone from a country with a lower or no minimum wage, such as the Philippines or Pakistan, essentially what you'd be doing is you'd be paying someone the equivalent that you would in your own country, but working for less than your own minimum wage.
And we feel like that is quite questionable on the ethics standpoint and is quite exploitative. Another thing we didn't really like about the book is that it's focused around e-commerce and sales specialists. A lot of the examples and a lot of the ideas that he provides are specifically on how to build a business on e-commerce. For example, he talks a lot about dropshipping, and we feel like that content doesn't always resonate with students.
The final thing that we disagree with is he talks about work as something that you're always going to hate and encourages you to do as little of it as possible so you can focus on doing things that you enjoy in your own time. Whereas me and Uzair feel like one of the things that you can do is if you enjoy your work a lot and find it fulfilling, either being self-employed or working for a good employer, you don't need to take all of your time away from work. That job doesn't have to just be for money. You can also enjoy it while you're making money.
Alright guys, that was it for today. We hope you enjoyed the first episode of Student Must Reads. The link to a 4-hour work week will be in the description.
So that's it for this video guys, and we hope you enjoyed. We'll see you later.